The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
You gone? Okay. That ass is coming. You can run, but you can't hide. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I really wanted to get a copy of the Bahamas Nationality Act, because I thought it's always very curious to me, this particular aspect of it as distinguished from the Immigration Act. It's here? Oh, you got it. Right, okay, great. Yeah. So, it says, the Bahamas Nationality Act is Chapter 190. And as I said, it's very interesting how the drafters of this act made it possible for these things to be done. So, just one provision, subject to, that's about, yeah. So, I got it. So you have Section 9. It says, the minister may, at his discretion, if application is made for naturalization in the prescribed manner by an alien of full age and capacity who satisfies he's qualified under the provisions of the second schedule, grant him a certificate of naturalization. So the point I'm making there is that law says the minister. And I have, since I've been in government, trying to figure out where this business of it has to go to the cabinet comes from. They say, some say, oh, it's the convention that the word minister means the cabinet. But the law says the minister. That's what it says. The Immigration Act doesn't say that. The Immigration Act says the Immigration Board is the cabinet, and the chairman of the board is the prime minister. So permanent residence has to be granted by the board, the Immigration Board. The power of work permits is devolved to the Minister for Immigration. He can do that. As a matter of fact, he could give, I think the convention is to give work permits for 3 years, but you could give a work permit for 50 years if you want to. That's devolved to the, and the board is headed by the Prime Minister. So permanent residence has to be granted by the cabinet, but the Act says the minister can grant citizenship. Now, you know, people keep talking about this backlog. It's very curious. People are going on about how Haitians are taking over the Bahamas and who's going to not take over the Bahamas and all the rest of it. In a dynamic economy, you know, Nicolette Bethel said this. She said, look, there's a reason why these folk are coming here. Bahamas is a rich country. There are job opportunities here. We hire them. We make $100 million off work permits every year. And they come here and they work. Now, she says, so if you want to stop them from coming here, since Haiti is a poor country, this is a rich country, this is a draw. You know, she's being satirical. She says, just make the Bahamas a poor country and they'll stop coming. That's just the fact of economics. And we keep running on about this. And yes, right. But what I'm saying is that what happens is that when we have these discussions, you keep asking about why the government doesn't engage in this, right? Because you cannot have a rational discussion on immigration in this country. When we did the CSME debate, I'm sorry? No, you know, all fun and joke aside. No, all fun and joke aside. And this ain't got nothing to do with comfort. You've heard, people have heard me say this from time immemorial, which means the year 1066. I've said this. From the year 1066, right? Right. From the year 1066. These are just the facts of life in our country. And, you know, people keep running on with this and that. And why I'm concerned about it is because what happened with the former prime minister a few minutes ago is just pure scaremongering. The Bahamas government, do you think in your wildest imagination the Bahamas government is going to send troops from the Bahamas into a danger zone where they're going to be in a killing field? That can't happen. It's impossible. But the country has international obligations. It has obligations to its domestic theater, which it has to carry out. It is sensible for us to have a policy to know what is going on in Haiti and to influence what is going on there. It's our neighborhood. And just like we'd be looking over the fence at our neighbor next door, we're doing the same thing, except it's a nation. And it is not true to say that Haiti has collapsed. There's a great deal of back and forth going on there politically. There's a fighting going on. They're trying to settle what their politics is. But Bahamas Air flies into Cape Haitian 3 times a week. They do. There's no problem in Cape Haitian. We moved our diplomats out of Port-au-Prince, but not because we thought that they were actually in danger, but because the Bahamian population thinks that they're in danger, and we don't want to get involved in a row with the Bahamian population over that. So we withdrew them. But it's in our interest to know what's going on in the place. We're the only CARICOM country that has an embassy in Haiti, and that's for a reason, because they are 90 miles to the south of us, and there are compelling reasons for us to know what is going on there. Can we influence what's going on there? Can we determine what is going to happen for the safety and security of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? That's why we're there. And as for why we don't have a plan, well, the United Nations just passed a resolution in October. Before that, there was no comprehensive agreement amongst all of the parties, the international parties, about what to do. The United States itself was unwilling to commit troops to the enterprise because of their experience in the past with putting troops in there. So they said, look, can some other country help us with this? We'll supply the money, we'll supply the funding, we'll supply the protection, whatever it is you need, the intelligence. But for the optics of this, it is better if this is CARICOM-led and if Africa is engaged with it. And so we agreed that that's the best thing for us to do. The Eminent Persons Group, which is made up of Kenny Anthony, Perry Christie, Bruce Golding, 3 former prime ministers of the country, have spent enormous time and energy and our money trying to get the Haitian elites to agree on a way forward. We've got them to agree. They've just sworn in the council last week. I'm not saying it's going to be seamless. It isn't. It's going to be difficult. But we have to keep encouraging them to do it. Now, one of the things I've said to everybody involved in this, because I've been engaged in this for a long time, is not to get suckered into thinking that we can solve Haiti's problems. We can't. First of all, they defeated Napoleon, so you can't tell them what to do, right? They struck the first blow for freedom, so forget that, right? Secondly, it's their country. It's not our country. It's their country. And all we can do is help encourage. P.J. Patterson, when he was prime minister, encouraged them to be a part of CARICOM. Why? Because the Dominican Republic was with the Latins, so they had a place to go in the international forum. We are English speaking, so we were all in a group together. The only one left out there by themselves with no international support were the Haitians. And he said, this can't be. The people who struck the blow for freedom are out there by themselves, just floundering in the wind. Can't be. So you come be with us. And that's why we're there. So I just, first of all, for a prime minister, a former prime minister, to engage in this silly scaremongering because he wants to get reelected to office, that's what you're doing? It's just, again, I said the word again, it's just offensive. It's just offensive. And then, Mr. Deputy Speaker, last week, I didn't say it on my feet. I didn't say it on my feet, but I sort of signaled to the leader of the opposition because I heard that there was a shadow cabinet. And I asked whether there was an official statement issued by the leader of the opposition with regard to a shadow cabinet. Within weeks of our being in the opposition, under the Member Palmer for Cat Island, Rum Cay, and San Salvador, he announced a shadow cabinet. Each person in the Parliament had a responsibility to shadow what the ministers of the government were doing. I had immigration, I had labor, I had foreign affairs. And I followed those faithfully. It's important because long ago, Merlin Rees, who was then the Home Secretary or former Home Secretary in the UK, taught me a class when I was at the University of London for a year, 1972. And one of the things he said was, in their system, there was a system of a shadow cabinet. And the responsibility was, the shadow cabinet is to follow what is going on the other side, so that when there is a transition, there is a seamless transition between the government and the opposition. And I followed that. I said to him, I've said publicly during the budget debate, their spokesman on foreign affairs, you keep talking about Freedom of Information Act. The problem I have is that the journalists in the country, and present company accepted, are too literal. And so when I'm engaged in irony and sarcasm, they go running off the deep end about what I said and what I don't believe and what I say. Don't be mistaking me for that. Clearly, the government's position is it supports the Freedom of Information Act. The Prime Minister, before I spoke, said that the question was expense and priority, right? We trying to get people jobs. You talking about spending money and time on Freedom of Information Act. But I said, at the same time, if there's anything you want to know inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, your spokesman is entitled to come and ask for it, and we'll get it. There's no issue. Ain't no secret. So I don't know what all the noise is about. But not once since I've been minister, Hubert Chipman was the last one who was the spokesman for the other side, who engaged in any kind of dialogue on this point.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Good. So again, we have asked, again, through you, Mr. Deputy, we have asked, for example, right, for an accounting of how many persons have been appointed to diplomatic posts overseas since September 21. What percentage, what portion of them are paid, not paid? So we've asked several questions around that officially, but we've not benefited from getting those details.
The last time there was a question time in here, I asked the parliamentary secretary to answer the question for me. I hear that the fellow throw a rule in his face, say, "Oh, you parliamentary secretary, so you can't speak." So I figure y'all don't want to answer that.
No, that's not accurate.
Well, that's what happened.
No. Go back.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
The member who represented the minister in his absence was not armed with any information to provide on that subject. And so again, we still await, we take you, we take you, if he has the information, he can provide it. But certainly I was here and was prepared to receive the information. So that's not the case.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Nassau Village.
Clarification, Deputy Speaker. The information was provided, to which the leader of government business for the opposition replied that only a minister would be able to answer. So therefore, the response was rejected.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair.
I don't recall the question, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but as leader of business for the opposition in the House of Assembly, I did refer the House to the rules, which says that the questions are to be answered by a minister. Now, I don't know why there's any issue over that, because these rules actually were signed and approved at a time, including members being the Honourable Frederick Mitchell MP, Deputy Chairman. I mean, the point is we're trying now to hear the story as to why question time is irrelevant. It's actually under the rules, and it hasn't happened in months. This is a waste of time hearing this back and forth. All we need to do is follow the rules. When the House is sitting in a month, we need to meet on the second Wednesday of that month and give 30 minutes to question time. We have to be more productive on behalf of the people of this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member.
Mr. Deputy,
the chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
We would welcome that information to be laid on the table of the House of Assembly. We would welcome the information.
Thank you, honorable member.
Now I'm a prisoner of the cabinet, right? So we have to see what my colleagues say. I'm sure you would, but you understand. You understand. So the next thing, Mr. Deputy, as I said, so the opposition spokesman, he knows what to do. You're going to announce the shadow cabinet. You have announced the shadow cabinet. All right. So
he sent it to us just now.
It was just sent to us. Oh, okay. So I don't have it. All right. So now
You put minutes on
So now the next thing is this point about the immigration minister, and quite a meal is being made about these. First it was said Chinese, then the Asians, and then the people. No, I'm not even getting in that part of it. All I'm saying is this: if you look at the Immigration Act, the person who runs the Department of Immigration is the minister responsible for immigration is the minister, not the director, not the deputy director, not the immigration officers. Okay. So I'll tell you, one of our ministers a long time ago was very hands-on in being Minister for Immigration. And one of his former directors said that she got this call one night. He used to like to go down to the airport, and because he had heard these stories about Air Jamaica and how the immigration officers were treating Jamaicans when they came through the airport. So he decided that he would be at the airport when Air Jamaica landed, and hands-on, he would make sure that they were not abused. So she says she gets a call from the immigration officer say, look, there's this man who I don't want to enter into the Bahamas, but the minister is down here, and he says, enter him. What should I do? So the director said, are you sure he's the minister? He says, yes, ma'am, it is the minister. He said, well, enter him. That's the law. So the minister, under the Act, has the authority and the power in circumstances, it says discretion, which you may not understand, which we may not understand. But there are reasons why a minister may act in a particular way. I'm not saying any such, I'm just saying how the rules operate. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying, unfortunately, that is the way the law is structured. Or I shouldn't say unfortunately, but that's the way the law is structured. And then it says in our conventions that the minister is ultimately responsible to Parliament. So you can come here and rake him over the coals over his discretion or the exercise of it, but it's his discretion. It's his discretion. And that's the way it operates. And no, I mean, I just said what the law is. I haven't deviated in any way, shape, or form. And then what you are always inviting us to do is to get into a situation where, again, our constitutional conventions are you don't throw public servants under the bus. You don't do it. Because, well, you're saying that, no, sir, not in here, not in here, not in here, not in here, never. Every minister, when they speak, are very careful to exercise their own discretion and don't blame it on other people. Never. Would never do it. And that's why you often say, well, you got this advice. You should know the conventions of the Constitution are that advice given, please give me a chance, advice given by public servants to ministers is necessarily confidential. And the question is, how does advice, which is confidential, get into the public domain?
The chair recognized the honourable member for Marco City.
I mean, again, I'll be out of the way so that the minister can continue. But what he said is really not accurate. Last week we had a communication from the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, who identified a lapse in the system in the ministry. And that was laid squarely at the foot of public servants who did not provide documentation.
No, he did not.
That's the point that was made.
No, he did not.
That information was not passed to the policymaker, right? So I'm just saying, we also saw that in the case of BPL, when we talked about information having been delivered to both the Prime Minister and the Minister, apart from both of them denying it at first. What was then later said that in finance, the information could have gone somewhere. In finance is a big place. Direct quote. But
in each case, I'm saying that the public servants were not blamed for the issue. All that happened was the narrative. The narrative was repeated, but each minister took responsibility for the acts of their department and their personal acts. Yes, it is the case. It is the case. You can misread whatever you want to say, but you forensically examine it, and that is the case. That's the case. That's the case. So, you know, just understand what the law is. Now, as for your interest in the shanty towns, I remember where I was Minister of Immigration in those days. How, as Minister of Immigration, I got caught up, because I think it was really the responsibility of the Minister of Works. But there was a community of people squatting on some land down in Bamboo Town. And the government determined that they were going to go. And we moved and did it in short order. Done. All the notices served, everything done. But who joined the chorus of people who said, oh no, you can't do this. You can't do this. Of course, the, you know, resident legal clown from Grand Bahama was in the newspaper, you know, dancing up and down, blocking every effort. And then, of course, you have the voices opposed to us who are in the newspaper saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But it was done. It was done. And the communities moved on. But we were prevented, you were saying it was your policy, or he's saying it was your policy, but we were prevented, we have to act according to law. And when the law made it possible to move, we moved. And the process is going on. And the law is going to be followed as long as we believe, we support and we believe in the rule of law. And that's what is happening on this question of the so-called shanty towns. And this is, again, one of these knife's edge issues, because I think what the social services people who found out, who've explored these communities, is that while people are saying it's them from down south that's actually squatting on the land, we found out in many cases these are Bahamian communities, you know. Right, they're Bahamian communities. And so you have to take certain measures to ensure that their housing is taken care of, that social services is involved, that kids can go to school, and they're not disadvantaged by the moves that you make. So it's not a question of just taking a bulldozer and just running down anything you say in there. It has to be an orderly and legal step. So again, we should be advised when you become a member of Parliament, you enter into a place that in the wedding ceremonies it says you shouldn't enterprise. You should enter it soberly, advisedly, because your words make a difference. And what it seems to me was happening here this morning is that in some kind of way, there's a design now to say that we are somehow first going to send our troops into danger, and then we are going to allow the borders to be overrun with those people from the south. And it's very curious because your question that you read out only identifies 3 groups of people, as I understand it. And again, this feeds into a fear-mongering, xenophobia in the country. We are not the only country where the workforce is peppered by people from overseas. United Arab Emirates, for example, 3 times their population are workers from the outside than the native population. Right. And this is just, you need these people to run the country. And that's just the fact of it. I don't think it's to that level in this country. But we monitor the situation. The law is followed. They apply for the work permits. You will find that, yes, there are some lapses and so on and so forth. But in the main, the Immigration Department does its job. They perform well. They make sure that people are here lawfully. Now, there's some capacity issues. When I was minister, I thought the Department of Immigration was underserved because I didn't think there were enough immigration officers. The police force is up around 3,500 or so. Prison is Yeah, the Defense Force is 2,500 or so. About 2,500. The Immigration Department, when I was there, was 300. And so it's 6. I thought it should be 900 if you really want to serve the demands of the country, because there's so many border crossings in the Bahamas that are simply unmanned. And so you have you have customs doubling up for immigration in areas. And this is not something which I think is that should be left alone. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
One of the things you mentioned is a concern about whether or not we can have a rational discussion on immigration issues. I mean, one of the things I've said in this place, I'm from Grand Bahama. I live in Grand Bahama. Freeport, it's my understanding, is designed for 250,000 persons. We have less than maybe 55,000 on the entire island. So clearly there's a need to grow the population. So it's not a case that we would have a fundamental problem with persons from any ethnicity being in the Bahamas or coming to the Bahamas. The question has always been making sure persons come the correct way, following the correct procedures, and that the officials, a part of our responsibility as gatekeepers, is to make sure that Bahamians, neither at the white or blue collar level, are displaced. But this issue of them coming, that's not the argument you get from this side. We believe we are somewhere in between the government that's on the far left and another group that's on the far right in terms of what our approach is to this issue. So we appreciate this is a country of immigrants. That's not the issue. The issue is we have a duty of care to make sure we are policing and that people come in the correct way and behave. They behave according to the laws. We define the parameters, and it is within those parameters that they operate. Thank you very much.
Your expressions that you just made are no different from the expressions which the Minister for Immigration, which is that we want people to come in the lawful way, we want them to, get proper work permits, and those who are not here should go back home. How is that any different? How is that any different?
It's different. It's different only in the sense that when there is the appearance that something different is being done, and we ask the question, there is a lack of willingness to offer clarification, so that if there's daylight between us, help us to understand what that daylight is.
The problem is this, Mr. Leader of the Opposition, is that, and I wrote this down, sorry I didn't say this at the start, is it doesn't matter what we say. Don't matter what we say. You're against it. You're against it, I'm telling you. Doesn't matter what we say, no matter what we say. If we bend over backwards to open up all the books, you'll still find some, it's like the story, what they said when the Pope and Obama were in the boat. You remember that story? Yeah, they're on the ocean. The Pope and Obama in the boat, they said. This is a joke. The Pope and Obama in the boat. And the seas get rough. The Pope gets overboard and is drowning. So Obama walks out of the boat, walks across the water, picks up the Pope and brings him back into the boat. And you know what the headline says the next morning? Obama can't swim. So no matter what we say, you poke a hole in it. Yeah, well, I don't know, but that ain't the headline. That couldn't be the headline. The headline. So what I'm saying is that we are as transparent as we think it is necessary to be in this country without inflaming the passions of xenophobia. And that is a serious point. And I said, we went through this. I went through a period, 2004, 2005, when we had that debate on CSA. We had to stop the debate because people were threatening mayhem against Caribbean people living in this country. It was just extraordinary. And so it becomes such a danger that we said, look, we have to stop this because this is getting to be nasty. And the government has to be careful that it does not inflame these passions. So there are things which you have to do. Sometimes it's not in the public interest. And even your Freedom of Information Act thing that you talk about admits to that fact. There are some things which, for various reasons, cannot or should not be made public. And that is the reason and how government operates. I would also add this, that forward movement of what happens with the support troops in the United Nations mission. The mandate runs out in October. The UN Security Council will have to renew the mandate, which I expect it will. You asked about the plan. You saw the various iterations which took place when the Minister for National Security spoke in terms of how things have evolved. We are still saying that it is envisaged, even though the Defense Force troops have been involved in the integrated training with the Jamaicans and other Caribbean troops. That is for operational reasons, but it's envisaged that the support will be on the marine side, not the land side. If you also, which the minister's already said, if you also read in the latest press statements, it is envisaged that American Airlines, JetBlue, and Delta will resume flights into Port-au-Prince within a month. The first flights, I think, are to resume on the 16th of May. So that tells you that it appears that there's been a turning of the tide in Port-au-Prince, and the country appears now to be going in the right direction. So pretty soon, we will have to make another decision about whether or not, and to what extent, diplomats ought to return to Haiti to serve the interests of the Bahamian public. And in connection with that, Haiti is the only CARICOM country whose nationals still require visas to come to the Bahamas. And I would say this. Every week, I get a phone call. Someone's visa's been turned down. I want to say this. I don't get involved in visa decisions in any way, shape, or form. You apply for a visa, the officials make the decision. I think under the rules, there's an appeal to the permanent secretary, and people should understand that. Because the society is small, there's a feeling that, you know, if you know the minister, you could always get him to sort of jump the line. I don't think that that's a wise thing, even though in law it is ultimately my decision. But I try to keep far away from that, precisely because there's this sensitivity throughout the country about pressure being put to get around the work permit laws to use visas to come into the Bahamas. So I just want to say that to people. Please use the system. If you apply for a visa, it should be done online. The officials are quite proficient at what they do, and if there is some fault, the visa process requires an appeal to the permanent secretary, and that's the way I think it ought to operate. So I want to end where I began again. That's by saying that, again, the law on citizenship gives the discretion. Oh, I wrap it up? Oh, great. All right. So that means I could talk for another.
Wrap it.
Yeah. Everybody agrees. Yeah, because I really didn't expect that there'd be any debate about this at all, except, you know, throwing the stuff in about Haiti and what the government is doing and all the rest of it. So I hope that's clarified. I have no expectation that anything that I said here today will resonate where it's supposed to, which is why I say again, you can't have a rational discussion. You know, they'll probably be calling me Haitian out on the street tomorrow or some foolishness, but, you know, whatever. The fact is, these are the facts about how law operates. This is the public policy of the country, and we try to do the best we can in a treasury. I am. They know me. No, don't draw me into that. I said what I wanted to say. You know, this is, and you know this. I mean, they know me. You know, I told people before, don't invite me to a place to speak if you know, because you got to know who you're asking to speak. All right. Right? Otherwise, don't get taken by surprise. But I think that the country is well governed. I think the immigration minister is an excellent minister. I support him 2,000%. And only one immigration minister at a time. The Honorable Alfred Sayers, the Member of Parliament for Fort Charlotte, my schoolmate from St. Augustine's College, my fellow traveler in the war against apartheid, my support of the justice in the Middle East. What else?
He's wrapping up. Oh.
You know, I don't know where you came with this stuff from. You know, come insulted me this morning, bud, because what he's really saying is because I'm old, I can now, you know. What happened? What did I say?
You made an ageist statement about the
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I would never do such a thing. No, I would never do such a thing. Never, 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 never. She's a great lady, a wonderful citizen of our country, and a national heroine. And we support the bill, and thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, and we support it. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read.